I hope everybody enjoyed that little ditty called Elements by Lindsay Sterling. You can find a lot of her material on YouTube. If you do a search on Lindsay Sterling on YouTube, you'll find that she has quite a number of very pleasant pieces, very, very nice background music. I hope you enjoyed that. Want to thank Am Rosen and Dean Lloyd for their presentation in the last half hour. But now we're going to connect with the sweltering deep south of the United States. We're all connected up with Lark in Texas, and he's just been telling me that you could cook eggs on his front porch. How you doing today, Lark?
Well, it's so dry. We could be spitting cotton today.
Well, Lark, I'll tell you, at this point, it's your time to burn. So let's hear what you got to tell us.
Well, I hope you can stand it. Here we go. Welcome, one and all, to United We Strike. This month, August 2013, our 4th year in business. This is my 7th month as a presenter at United We Strike. And so I want to remind you, first of all, that to read means to guess. To write means to trace. To read means to guess. To write means to trace. And I speak to words and to language, and especially to communitarianism, and particularly to communitarians, because I think it's very useful that we all learn who our enemy is. Who are the destroyers? Who are these people who want to poison our minds, destroy our bodies, and foreclose on our futures? A friend or two have shared correspondence with me recently. And in response to one, he wrote a piece entitled, "When Morning Becomes Electric." I write, "Thank you, my friend, for demonstrating that humane, rational thought is still possible, and that thought can penetrate in its immediacy, yet be timeless. Scroll Texas, just an American. You can find my website very easily, larkintexas.blogspot.com. I'm going to reference a few pages today in this presentation, but generally speaking, for the duration of this series, and since my time at United We Strike, I have focused on an entry entitled "The Sum of All Things." It's currently numbered as a series 1 through 5. But here in my response to my friend and his essay entitled "When Morning Becomes Electric," I quote from Hermes and the Global Plantation, 2 entry pages at Just an American, larkintexas.blogspot.com. Faith is a state of openness or trust. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. And the attitude of faith is the very opposite of clinging to belief, of holding on. In other words, a person who is fanatic in matters of religion, even science, and clings to certain ideas about the nature of God and the universe, becomes a person who has no faith at all. Instead, they are holding tight. But the attitude of faith is to let go and become open to truth, whatever it might turn out to be. So as you see, the entry page that I've directed you to, the sum of all things, is only abbreviated because the sum of all things is the truth. The prevalent sensation of oneself as a separate ego enclosed in a bag of skin is a hallucination which accords neither with Western science nor with the experimental philosophy religions of the East. This hallucination underlies the misuse of technology for the violent subjugation of man's natural environment and, consequently, its eventual destruction. These quotes from Alan Watts in the book on the taboo of knowing who you are. Signs and symbols control the world, not phrases and laws. This from Confucius. O divine art of subtlety and secrecy, through you we learn to be invisible, through you inaudible, and hence we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. All warfare is based on deception. Therefore, the skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. With his forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire, and thus without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. If you can't define it, then you don't fully understand it, and you can't fix it or fight what you don't understand. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. This from Sun Tzu. The 21st century will be the era of the world controllers. The older dictators fell because they could never supply their subjects with enough bread, enough circuses, enough miracles and mysteries. Under a scientific dictatorship, education will really work. Up to love their servitude and will never dream of revolution. There seems to be no good reason why a thoroughly scientific dictatorship should ever be overthrown. From Aldous Huxley in Brave New World Revisited. Inasmuch as every government is an artificial entity, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only, a government can interface only with other artificial persons. The imaginary, having neither actuality nor substance, is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. The legal manifestations of this are that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court, etc., can concern itself with anything other than corporate, artificial persons and the contracts between them. This from a Supreme Court case, Penhallow versus Doan's Administrators, 1795. Now contrast that quote with this one from the Red Amendment by L.B. Bork, 2001, revised 2007. The America once extolled is the voice of liberty heard round the world no longer is cast in the image which Jefferson and Madison designed, but more in the Russian image. The Supreme Court, Laird v. Tatum, 408 U.S. 1, 1972. And yes, the mimetic warfare for the control of the American mind continues apace. Its aim? To produce mind-controlled slaves with a programmed shelf life of planned obsolescence. After World War II, I think it was MIT's Norbert Wiener who pointed the way. As I tried to demonstrate with my recent mass mailing. For those, of course, who bother to read any of it, to recognize the patterns, and or who listen to that disturbing new transhumanism interview, with Joseph Farrell and Scott DeHart. Much of what I'd learned after listening to that interview twice, I'd benefited greatly already from reading Aaron Franz's book, entitled Revolve, Man's Scientific Rise to Godhood. This from theageoftransitions.com. Also by my familiarity with the contrast I once spoke about between the worldviews of Cotton Mather and Bernard de Mandeville. Weishaupt and Adam Smith both drew from Mandeville's division of labor economic theory, as well from his Fable of the Bees poem, along with his attitude towards and immorality, as it concerned the natural order of things. No wonder he thought to call the Rothschild-funded Bavarian Order of the Illuminati, announced May 1st, 1776, and celebrated internationally as present-day May Day. First, the Order of the Bees, and then the Order of the Perfectibilist. See Perfectibilism. These fine gentlemen, of course, regarded themselves as social engineers, social scientists, our controllers, and yes, our slave masters, because that's what they decided only they, as well as their bought and paid for proxies, confederates, fellow travelers, blue bloods, fraternity brothers, partners in crime, were born into this world to do. And these attitudes persist still to this day. Now here I'm drawing reference back to the list of isms that I have spelled out for you as embedded links at that entry, the sum of all things, larkintexas.blogspot.com. Because I want you to know who is your enemy. DID. And so I hearken back to that word industrialism because I realized the link seemed incomplete. And I want to throw a few names at you, in particular two. The first, a gentleman by the name of Frederick Winslow Taylor, F.W. Taylor, the father of scientific management, and one of the very first to do sophisticated scientific time and motion studies, but also to Norbert Wiener and cybernetics, but also to an essay written by one Theodore Kaczynski, Industrial Society and Its Future. And for fun, you might want to begin by doing a search for something entitled "They Are Throwing It in Our Faces." Let's learn something more about this thing called Mayday. And then go on YouTube, perhaps. And I would suggest the net, the Unabomber, LSD, and the internet. Watch the high-quality full version. Learn about the story of this man that the press dubbed the Unabomber. Read the Unabomber Manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future. Go to Amazon. Look at the reviews, Technological Slavery, the collected writings of Theodore J. Kaczynski, a.k.a. the Unabomber. On YouTube, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. He wasn't paranoid. He was conspired against. But do read too The Road to Revolution by Theodore Kaczynski from prison, released in 2009. All of these things are freely available to you on the internet, so long as we have it, the internet. If you're concerned about the brainwashing you received in the public schools and the colleges and the universities, if you're concerned for your family members, your children, please visit invisiblesurfscollar.com. Surf, S-E-R-F, plural, collar, as on a shirt or a dress. invisiblesurfscollar.com. The one I reference in my missive to my friends is entitled Digital Promise and 21st Century Skills as the long-sought rapid change of minds for the future. And for fun, check out a website entitled Niquette.com. Niquette, for Paul Niquette, Niquette.com. And look for the piece entitled Software, provenance for the word software. I've had personal correspondence with Paul, and he's a communitarian. And he claims to have actually coined the word software in 1953. Now, where I'm pointing to today, ladies and gentlemen, are two words. One is counter-economics, and the other is autarky, or autarkism, because I'm seeking solutions, remedies and solutions that few will follow, even when they know the truth. Let's first, though, mention Norbert Wiener once again. Norbert Wiener is famous for
It looks like I might have lost Lark here. Let's see, is he back?
Am I still here?
Yeah, I lost you there for a second. I thought I was going to have to fill in with a moment of music. You were just getting into your discussion of this guy, and you mentioned his name, and then boop, you blipped out on me.
Uh-oh. Well, fortunately, the gremlins have not won the day.
Lark, you forgot to give the donuts to the guy in the black Suburban out in front of your place, right? I mean,
I did. I did.
See, they like the donuts with the pink sprinkles, and you got to give them coffee that is made out of Arabica beans, not Colombian. These guys are picky.
I know, and I'm always kind to everybody I meet, even when I know that they're mostly brain dead or
In any case,
zombies.
you've got about 5 minutes to wrap up your presentation. I think you were talking about this guy Wiener.
We'll do it. Now, Mr. Wiener is famous for something called the human use of human beings, cybernetics in society. Now, he wrote this tome for the dumbed down kind of folks like me and perhaps you. In the executive summary of this book, The Human Use of Human Beings, Cybernetics and Society, in its executive summary, he writes that cybernetics is a field of study that arises out of information theory and automation. Norbert Wiener introduced the field in his book, Cybernetics, or Control and Communication in the Animal and the Machine. The presentation in that book is technical and not easily accessible to a layman. Wiener sought to popularize the ideas presented there in that book. The rise of statistical mechanics and the discovery of entropy led scientists to a worldview of interdependency and contingency. In such a universe, chaos is more likely than order. Yet order does exist. How this order persists and increases is the study of cybernetics. Life and some recent devised machines are capable of increasing order through the use of feedback to alter behavior. The human ability to make such life-like machines give insights into how these processes work. As much or more than other sciences, cybernetics impacts society at large. It has implications for political, judicial, and scientific organizations. It points to new definitions of humanity and the changing role of people in relationship to machines. Please check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Learn who are your enemies. Socialism, remember, equates to gangsterism and to your slavery. I don't care what kind of socialism it is. Corporatism, fascism, communism. Now to conclude, I'm going to share with you my response to a fellow researcher in her piece entitled Full Spectrum Dominance. Go to channelingreality.com. Channelingreality.com. The root problems are for a number, to wit, money, law, socialism, democracy. Money or currency, being the lifeblood of anyone's economy, must be tied to some finite substance or substances recognized as having universal value so that it can facilitate convenient trade. Flesh and blood people should own it and control its use, not governments or private monopolies, corporations, or the friggin' community. Period. Law, as in rule of law, remember, this was to be a nation of limited government. The rule of law, supplanting mob rule, the rule of fallible men, must be grounded in reality and universally recognized precepts. It must be made intelligible so that it can be adhered to by one and all. And it must be respectful of property, as well as other people's legitimate property rights. Starting with that which resides in your own skin, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone must own and control the fruits of one's own labor. a contractual relationship with another or others.
About a minute here, Lark. You're going to want to wrap it up, and please, one more time before you bum out of here, is make sure folks know where they can find out more about what you've got.
Very good. Thank you, Maestro. Governments must be severely limited and constrained within this rule of law. Slavery abolished. Use of force reserved for violators. Socialism, no matter its variant, is synonymous with racketeering and organized crime. Gangsterism. It is inhumane and places severe restrictions on achieving maximum human potential and fully realized beings. As such, limited liability protections, monopolies, and corporatism need to be outlawed as inconsistent with honorable contract or rule of law, because such schemes and arrangements are ultimately disrespectful of everyone's property. And finally, democracy, especially in the absence of an intelligible, universally recognized rule of law, is immoral, completely unworkable, and must be consigned to the ash bin of history, for it is tantamount really to the law of the jungle.
30 seconds, Lark. Get that website out there.
And the end of civilization as we once wished it could be for everyone. larkintexas.blogspot.com. Just an American, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lark. And on that note, got to take us out with a Star Wars theme for all you Star Wars fans. Here we go.
Well, that'll work.
Hey.
Aves alicate